we know in our country, we have a bit of a unique constitutional situation where we have exclusive powers granted to the federal level of government and exclusive powers granted to the provincial level of government. We also have a court that acts as a referee, and there's multiple levels of court, and sometimes decisions get overturned up to the level of the Supreme Court. When the Supreme Court makes a decision, we have to abide by that. People have asked me through the campaign trail whether I would ignore the carbon tax, and I said, well, this is an issue where the Supreme Court has already rendered a decision. So we have to find other ways to address issues of affordability for our citizens. I've also received advice that because we have new information that has come up, we can relitigate issues at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court, it's not like double jeopardy. It's not like a murder case. Once they render a decision, if new information becomes available, you can relitigate. My intention would be to do that on the carbon tax, especially since the invasion of Ukraine has created so much world calamity in energy security and energy prices. It's creating a massive affordability problem for our seniors and most vulnerable. And I don't think any of those arguments made it into the initial debate about how to address emissions reduction. I think as well, we've also seen our business community has done an amazing job of setting aggressive targets for carbon neutrality and emissions reductions. And I would like to be able to support them on that. In fact, I've indicated to the Prime Minister when I spoke with him last week that we would be sending a delegation with the federal delegation to COP27, because I think that talking about all of the ways in which carbon technology, carbon capture, carbon storage is being used here in addition to our hydrogen economy. I think these are going to factor into our new arguments that we make to the Supreme Court that we have another way of reaching the same target. When we had the equalization referendum and got a 62% mandate on it, that was us asking the federal government to engage in a constructive discussion with us about how to reform our relationship. That was the mechanism. And a lot of the legal scholars at the time said that by having that constitutional change, that it would initiate a process where that would compel Ottawa to come to the table to have those meaningful discussions. Instead, a few days after, he appointed Environment Minister Stephen Guilbeault, who has done nothing but attack our industry, not just our oil and gas industry, but also our agriculture and agri-food industry as well. So I feel like we have reached out and we have tried to meet them halfway, and we have not been met halfway. And now we have to take a step that will affirm that we intend to operate in our areas of jurisdiction. If they are not going to be constructive in helping us to meet with the German chancellor so we can get an LNG deal, or develop economic corridors with our neighbors so that we can get our products to market, we're going to have to take the lead on doing that ourselves. I'd love to work collaboratively with the federal government on that, but we've faced nothing but hostility for the last 7 years, so we have to try something new. I want our frontline workers to know reinforcements are coming. We cannot continue understaffing our hospitals and then forcing our frontline workers to work mandatory overtime and be called in on days off and have to cancel their holidays. That's been the situation for the last 2.5 years. And a lot of that problem was created by policies at Alberta Health Services of having mandatory vaccinations. So it prevented us from being able to hire back everyone who had been let go up until about 2.5 months ago when Cabinet directed them to end the mandate. Prevented us from being able to graduate students across the full range of professions because they also had vaccine mandates. It prevented us from being able to hire from other jurisdictions through the full range of people who would have otherwise wanted to come here because of vaccine mandates. So they actually, at the management level, made things even worse for our front line. And when you see that kind of poor management, especially since the Premier gave them direct instruction, I remember this very clearly, because everyone said, okay, well, if this is about saving the healthcare system, let's give them the time, let's give them the money, and let's let them do it. He gave them direct instruction to increase surge capacity by 1,100 beds. And then when the Delta variant came along, they admitted they hadn't done that they had reduced surge capacity. So this is a management problem. It is not a problem with our frontline workers. Our frontline workers need to be supported. And when it happens in a business, when they fail to meet targets and they fail to meet direction, you change the management. And so that's what we're going to do. We're going to change the management.